The European Union has cautioned that a lot of work remains if there's to be any Brexit deal by the October the 31st deadline. Expectations were raised following a positive meeting last week between the UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson and the Irish Prime Minister Leo Varadkar. A flurry of top-level meetings and negotiations on Brexit have continued throughout the weekend and are now continuing today. Well, we're going to go live now to London and Brussels for reaction to this. Vincent will be with you in a second. But Jack, let's start with you in Brussels. What do we know, if anything, about the content of the discussions and negotiations that took place over the weekend?
Well, Rosie, good morning. It is still all over that Irish border issue. That's really where the sticking point has been now for a long time, and that's where the discussions have been going. Mina Andreeva, who's the EU Commissioner's chief spokesperson, tweeted to say that the talks are constructive, but a lot of work remains to be done, echoing the chief Brexit negotiator, Michel Barnier, who's been in intense meetings over the last few weeks. We know that the talks will continue today. And the understanding is that what they're working on is some sort of suggestion that Northern Ireland would remain in a customs union with the United Kingdom, but would enforce EU customs rules, therefore preventing the need for customs checks across the border. Nobody is very clear on how that would work, but our understanding is that is what the talks are really on at the moment.
Well, Jack, the French President and German Chancellor also met over the weekend, yesterday actually. How significant is that?
Well, they had a long meeting. They sat down together yesterday evening, discussed, it looked like what their main discussions were over was the Turkish offensive in Syria, but they did touch on Brexit in their press conferences. There was a real change of tone from the German Chancellor, Angela Merkel, when she was speaking. She started speaking about the United Kingdom as a competitor to the European Union after Brexit, potentially. They were talking about artificial intelligence and the race towards improving that. And she mentioned the UK being a competitor. As I say, that's a change of tone from the EU side, where generally they've sort of been talking about the UK as being a very good neighbour and remaining in close cooperation with the European Union. And this really is providing sort of commentators and meaning that a lot of people looking at Brexit are starting to wonder whether the EU side, and specifically the German Chancellor, is starting to think that even if some kind of deal is done, by the end of it, the UK position will be very different, and it will be different to what the EU had when it negotiated that initial withdrawal agreement with the Theresa May government.
Jack Parrick, our correspondent in Brussels, thank you. Let's head over to London, where Vincent McAviney is there. Morning to you. We've been hearing then that Boris Johnson might have softened his position. If that was the case, how likely is he to pull those hardline Brexiteers with him?
Well, good morning, Rosie, from a very wet Westminster today. And yes, we are hearing that Boris is starting to soften his position, change it, look at proposals that he previously ruled out, quit Theresa May's government over it even. But the problem for him now is that he doesn't have a working majority in Parliament. And we know that his backbenchers, the ERG group, are very difficult to bring along on this because they 3 times voted down Theresa May's Brexit plan. So that is the group that normally would support him, but they have said that they'll only go along with the Brexit plan as long as the DUP go along with it because they want to protect the union. And over the weekend, Jacob Rees-Mogg, who was the leader of that group and a particular hardcore band who called themselves the Spartans, who kind of held out to the last third vote, he has said that he thinks that he can get them to. He said he previously called these plans cretinous when he was a member of them, but now he's in the government. He's saying it's all about flexibility, about believing in Boris Johnson's direction of travel, and so it may be that they can bring these people along if they say to them, look, it's either this or Brexit itself could be totally cancelled if we head into a general election and don't do well.